So I say it before and I say it again and I keep saying it. The people in Dublin, the people sitting in Dublin and Shannon doesn't give a shit about this, about the rest of Ireland apart from Dublin. Dublin, that's the only thing they care about where the multinational companies are. They only care about Dublin. They couldn't give a shit about in Cavan, up in Cavan. They couldn't care less. They couldn't care about Monaghan. And time again, we see it in Cavan. And it comes to a point where you have to say to yourself, should Cavan seek more independence from Dublin? We should become more like a state in the United States or a municipality, take for example in Germany or in Finland, even take for example, has more power, local authorities, etc. Because I think it'd be better for the people to decide who got like in their area, who can govern them, and the decisions to be made locally instead of made in Dublin where they don't have a clue what's going on. So I say this because there's been time and time again things have been promised for Cavan, things have happened in Cavan, things people were begging for reform, and we'll get deaf ears. We're told to fuck off and be quiet, and go back to Cavan and sit down and say nothing. Take for example, just recently the Minister for Justice was here in Cavan, and Drew Harris, the last Garda Commissioner, promised that this cyber unit is not the biggest deal, but it's the fact of the matter was promised that it would be given to Cavan to deal with cyber crime, etc., etc. Now it's going to be in Loud instead of in Cavan. It was supposed to be in Balliol. And again, this is the thing. I mean, Niamh Smith and the rest of them should be kicking up hell because Cavan dissolved that. It was promised, it was told 100% Cavan was going to get it. And it's not the biggest deal, don't get me wrong, but it's the fact of the matter, when things are promised, you should keep it. But again, Cavan's always seems to be the last one out. We go even just to Bomboy. Bomboy Garda Station, we go to the article here from the Irish Times. In 2017, when the government, Shane Ross was the Minister for Transport, and I can't think of his name now, the former Minister for Justice, but yeah, long story short, in 2017 it was promised that Bomboy Garda Station would really open. It's only a small rural Garda Station, about 3 extra Gardaí for Cavan. But it was said that it would reopen along with 6 other Garda stations. And long behold, we're a few years later, 2070, the Garda station now, the area of the Garda station is going to be put up for auction and sold away. Even though it was promised in the programme for government, it was promised time and time again by Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin, it was promised by the whole lot of them that everything would be done to open this Garda station. And yet again, and as we see the results of this in Cavan, that Cavan is the second most dangerous county in Ireland for crime. People are terrified. There's elderly people in Cavan terrified to go outside their house. There's people being attacked, etc., etc. in Cavan. There's burglaries non-stop. There's people going to court getting off or coming back in the next week committing the same crime. And it's just the cycle keeps repeating. So it comes to a point now, we have to ask the question, does the people in Dublin, even the people who elected Dáil and Shannon Éireann, do they actually care about the people of Cavan? Do they think we're through us? Do we think we're idiots? Because we're not idiots. That's why we should seek more authority to govern ourselves. Because Dublin seems incapable of governing the country and governing our Cavan and making sure that the people of Cavan are safe and looked after. At this point in time, we should look for more decentralised approach. That Dublin doesn't have all the say, and it should never have been the way that Dublin has the say on how Cavan can be governed. It should never have been the say. It should have been always local councillors elected by the people of that area, the local people of Cavan, elected their councillors. They should have the decision. They should nearly have the ultimate authority for the area. Obviously the central government should have some say, but of course the people of Cavan should have the most say. And I do think it's an indictment of democracy that there's not democracy at all at the local level, because at the end of the day the true meaning of democracy, in my opinion, is the woman behind me, and I believe in this very, very strongly, that at the end of the day everything is about people. Everything we talk about here, cyber crime, it affects people, affects the Irish people. We're talking about Boy Garda Station, that affects that area of area of Cavan, that these people are fearful going to bed at night in case the house will be broken into in the middle of the night, and God forbid they have to ring the guards and it takes 6 or 7 hours for them to turn up, and then not to mention that when the people do get caught, if they do get caught, they get off with it and go around doing it to other people. And this is an indictment on the whole situation of the state. And just even looking at this, I've experienced this myself with my father waiting 4 hours for an ambulance on the floor with my father, 71-year-old man, worked all his life, and not one of them, not one minister, not one TD has come here to say, they didn't want to come because they knew rightly I wouldn't listen to the bullshit, because that's all it was, bullshit. Because there was talk about improving, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I've heard it all before. I've heard Jennifer Carmanick, I heard them all in Dáil Éireann talking about, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do the other, but nothing was ever done. And then we seen with a young lad in Cavan who's lying on the pitch waiting for an ambulance. They had to bring him in the car because the ambulance didn't turn up with a broken leg. Now, this is an indictment on the whole situation. This is an indictment on democracy, if you ask me. That the people of Cavan are this madly mistreated, not even in Cavan, the people of Ireland is this madly mistreated. That this is the situation we have in Cavan. And this is only a small snippet of the situation. Not to mention then the extreme amount of prices young people are paying for rent, etc., etc., in our county. It's an indictment on ourselves, and I do think we should look about it, that we should become more independent from Dublin, that decisions are made in Cavan and not made in Dublin. Obviously we still send representatives to Dáil Éireann, etc. But at the end of the day, I do think the people of Cavan should have the ultimate say. In nearly every decision that's made locally, I do think it's up to the people. It's the people, because I think the ideal that a few could select the people that are elected by the people of Ireland, by the people of Cavan, as councillors. I do think it's important that the people have to say, because at the end of the day, the councillors make their own decisions, etc. But I do think it should be up to the people at the end of the day, because they're the ultimate authority. It's not the councils or TDs. We're just there to steer the ship. It's up to the people to tell us what direction to go into. And I feel very strongly about that we should look for more independence, and other counties should do the same, that we take back the power from Dublin and bring it back to the people of this county, and the same with other areas of this county. We should bring it, same with other areas of this country, that the people are the ultimate authority, because I think the government in Dublin has got too level-headed. They think they're God, and that's the thing, they think they're God Almighty, and that they can dictate and they become heaven and earth, but they're not. Simple as that. They're not. Nobody ever has that authority. But I think they're so driven by money and power. And I think that's just the main thing. Even as the woman said behind it, it's not about people anymore. It's all about money and power and influence. Nothing else matters. And that's just the thing. And she's not wrong. That's what it's all about. It's all about money and power and influence. It does not, and people don't even be mentioned in them discussions. And it's a sad thing to say, but do the think, and again I ask the question again, do the people in Dáil Éireann and Shannon and the civil servants in Dublin think the Cavan people are fools? And do they think the Irish people are fools, first of all? They must well do think we're fools, because time and time again we've been let down and let down and let down and let down. And not even Cavan, people of Ireland have been let down. Time and time again. We need 6 or 7 hands to count how many times we've been let down this year alone. But I do think it's an indictment of democracy that this is the charade of a system that we have. But anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more, and bye.